All right, let's get this party started. Welcome to MIP 433, coming to you live from my bedroom. I think if you listen closely enough, you can hear birds chirping. It's a beautiful day. So I really wanted to do this whole thing synchronously, as in live. But because of Zoom's audio quality and the chaotic nature of having 20 people on Zoom at the same time, it just doesn't look like that's a very good idea. So I'm going to be pre-recording these things as you're watching right now. And what I want to do is have you follow up with me if you want to do a one-on-one or group Zoom session and ask me questions. But I imagine since this is kind of a YouTube tutorial, you're used to that type of thing anyway. So I imagine it's not the worst way of working that you've ever had. So usually only with older folks do they have an issue with this way of learning. So if you have individual questions, obviously you can email me, set up a Zoom, whatever. So this is 433. This is advanced digital audio production. And the long and the short of that is this is a DAW agnostic class, especially now that we're all working from home, but it would have been had we not been doing that anyway. What I mean by that is the idea is that you can use any one of the DAWs at your disposal to do this. This is not a Pro Tools specific class. This is a class about making great music using more advanced production techniques. So anywhere from checkerboarding, which we're going to be discussing today, to different filter curving and sidechaining and faking sidechaining and ducking, to learning how to make lo-fi beats to chill to, learning how to make vocal chops and atmospheric sounds from your own voice or with other pieces of software. Or using Logic or Ableton, vocal tuning, vocal editing, de-essing, sidechaining vocals, dynamic EQ, parallel processing, all sorts of stuff, getting into mixing and gain staging theory, getting into elastic audio techniques, getting into advanced EQ techniques, just all sorts of stuff that are the more really detail-oriented, specific stuff that is not just generally music making. And so you'll notice one thing is not like the other in the sense that this lo-fi beats to chill to. That's how to get a specific sound or type of genre, and I might want to spruce in 2 or 3 more of those days, and I might want to kind of fill you guys out on what that would be. For instance, like if you want to learn how to make future bass or something like that, just a topic that might be interesting to discuss and how to achieve that sound. So today what we're going to be discussing is a topic called checkerboarding, and this checkerboarding technique is actually something that I found on YouTube, and it's something that I had done before. And this was actually a really good video. This guy, Garden Sound, how to make your trap slap harder and better with one simple technique, which is an idiotic title, and he's kind of annoying, but maybe you think I'm annoying. But the idea and the information in here is really, really good. And you can really see what checkerboarding is really kind of like literally just by looking at this, right? So you can see that one transient ends, another begins, one transient ends, another begins. And then there's, drums consistently playing over top of those things. So you're like, Ben, what the hell is checkerboarding? Why should I care? Checkerboarding is a really important technique that maybe some of you already use and you just didn't really know what the name for it was. But it's a technique that is used a ton in pop music, whether that's future-based pop, whether that's like indie pop, whether that's Taylor Swift pop, whatever it is, it's a technique that I think was truly founded in dubstep and future bass, but it's something that extends itself to other genres as well. And the long and the short of it is it's about making space for items that don't bleed onto one another. So gated reverb would be a really good example of something that's kind of like checkerboarding, where you have this dimensional sound, let's say reverb, where a snare is really far back, and then that reverb just cuts off. So you're playing with dimension, right? If we think about panorama and dimension, we're playing with going from here to here very fast, or here to here very fast, and making sure that none of those dimensions bleed onto each other, right? So let me open up something new first, and then we'll kind of discuss it. So let's say I'm going to take a stomp, kick, all downloads, stomp. Right? If I take this stomp kick right here, and then, you know, huge clap, huge clap. No, I have a big one. All right, sure, I'll take this, and I'll download it first. So I've got this kick. So, and we'll do boom, ch. There we go. All right, so I've got this loop now, right? And you know what? In between that, I want to get some sort of like synth chord. So I'm going to go to synth, future bass, right? And I just want some sort of synth. Perfect. Get this little sweet little synth stab. You probably can't hear that just yet, but now you should be able to. All right, so I've got. Okay, so we've got that, right? Now, right now, you're dealing with 3 separate layers of dimension. You've got this kick, which, while it does have some sort of reverb on it, is very close in the stereo image, right? Then you've got this chord, synth stab, which is pretty far back in the mix. And then you've got this clap, which I'd say is in between those two, or very close to the kick, right? But you can see the reverb tail or the decay tail or the release tail of all 3 of these things bleeding into one another. In checkerboarding, the idea is that theoretically, these don't touch. So you would have like so, and then, you know, in theory, that would bleed into that, you know, at least reach there. And then you have this, and then, you know, maybe you tuck that back and you have that. So maybe you actually have that together twice. Oops. That's what checkerboarding is. So despite the fact that you have all of these dimensions, right? All of these different layers of sound going forwards and a back and a mix, that they don't overlap each other. Why do you do that? Well, one, if you are to have them overlap each other, it's going to sound muddy. So one part of it is just simply a mixing component, right? It's not even that it's muddy. It's just that, you know, they kind of bleed into each other. Now, the idea of it more so is that it's very exciting to a listener. Now, this is a very electronic EDM focused example of this, right? Or if you wanted to even go a little bit further with that concept, you would put, you know, maybe a ton of reverb on it and send some of these even further back. So I'm going to duplicate this, and then on the second one, or the first one, I'll take that reverb off. And the second one, I'll have it on. And then I'll say, this will be drier. This will be wetter. This will be drier. This will be wetter. Right? So now you have... But we're going to take that concept even a bit further. Because I have reverb on that, there's probably a tail of some kind. So I'm going to freeze and flatten it. And then adhere to my checkerboarding technique. Right? That's what checkerboarding is. Now, if you don't want to do freeze and flatten, right, Logic has a really great feature where it does bounce in place. And bounce in place would duplicate it, flatten it into audio, and still keep the previous one, but mute it. If you've ever used Max for Live like me, there's a really great Max for Live plugin. Now, I think it cost me $5. It's called BIP. Bounce in place, just like Logic, right? And what you can do is you can set it a place to start. You hit that button, and it's going to do all that work for you. Does all the work for you. Then you just have to mute it. And now I can, boom. And that sounds pretty cool. It sounds pretty sick. So the long and the short of it is that's what checkerboarding is, right? So I actually think that's a good example. So I'll say that as checkerboarding other. Sure. All right, so we'll do collect all and save, make sure that's good to go. All right, now let's open up some examples from popular music production. So this is a track called Mistakes by Tove Stryke. And I'm going to start right here. I guess this is maybe the verse. And then right as we get in this section, this is where some serious checkerboarding is happening. Right, so we've got a lot going on in the stereo image. There's a lot happening in the music right now, both forwards, middle, and backwards. And it's going to completely suck into just kind of empty space for a second, which is very exciting.
Close, oh close, I don't feel like going home now. Got me all up in the zone now. I better give me highs and lows. Wanna get close, oh close. Then probably better if I go now. You make me wanna make mistakes. Love how bittersweet it tastes. Hey, 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 you make me wanna make mistakes. Bend my heart until it breaks. Hey, 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 you say a lot.
So I think that's freaking awesome, right? And you can literally see that. Like, this is going to zero, like, silence right here, which it's exciting because it goes away for a second and then it comes back. It's very interesting to the listener. And then even between these syllables in her voice, you're having almost total gated silence.
You make me.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool, right? And then
Haze, hey, you make me.
And then even when the beat drops, you have almost complete silence again in between these claps or snares.
You make me.
Right, so that can be done using that checkerboarding technique, as in flattening audio. I think that's the best way to do it. You can also automate mutes. That's a way to do it too. I do that every now and again. Or you can completely automate the track volume to completely just turn down like that. That's another way to do it. I think audio is the best way to do it because you have more visual control over it. All right, so that's Tove Stryke, so that's Mistakes. Let's move on to the next example. This is a really cool band I saw on Jules Holland, if you know what that show is, called Rationale. I think they're English. I might have that wrong. Or no, I think he's from Zimbabwe, but they live in England. I'm not really sure. But a really, really cool kind of South African pop-influenced band. I know that Zimbabwe is not South Africa, but the sound is South African pop. He happens to be from Zimbabwe and live in London. There's a lot going on. All right, so let's do the same thing here. We're going to go to the verse here, and then you can see the checkerboarding here, right? And that checkerboarding really happens to take place in the sense that you've got all of this music happening with, you know, a lot of or a lack of dynamics, really, right? There's just a lot going on at once, and then it's complete silence, and it looks like what's taking up that silence is just a drum fill, and then it goes back to that kind of dense area again. So that's checkerboarding too.
Gone are the days of virtue and honor, Christ that we fought for, burn on the wall. Let it never be said that we truly learn from darker days. Pressure keeps falling on my shoulders from high and low. Ain't no justice in these moments, but we'll find comfort when kingdom comes. They are bleeding you of every right we've ever earned, until we have nowhere to turn.
All right, so then it happens there. There's actually a vocal checkerboard where that vocal is taking up that space. And again, you go from extremely dense to not quite as dense, then back to very dense. So that's very exciting. I think that's really, really cool. So then let's also, of course, have our third example, which is, of course, Tay. I'm not a huge fan of this record, but I really like this song. Okay. And we'll get rid of that. And we muted it. Okay. So you can see the checkerboarding, right? So you've got this right here, that's checkerboarding. You've got that right there. Holy hell, look at that. That's complete silence. Checkerboarding.
But then something
Right. The piano checkerboards.
But then something happened one magical night. I forgot that you existed. but it didn't. And it was so nice, so peaceful and quiet. I forgot that you existed. It isn't love, it isn't hate, it's just indifference.
Here it comes.
I forgot that you got out some popcorn.
Ah, I love it. It's cheap, it's easy to do, but it's really exciting, right? It really breaks up, you know, the listener's attention in the sense that you're not just overwhelming them with just audio, right? All right, so let's look at a couple more examples. So really, here's a super EDM example. So I made that first one, but here's another example that I think was originally what I showed last year during this class, right? Right? You can see the checkerboarding. Right, so that's checkerboarding as well. And you can see that a lot of these things have flattened audio. Then I've got two more to look at. So one would be Kiss It, Make It Better. This is a song I did myself. And this has a ton of checkerboarding in it because it's a future-based song. And that's really the, I think Ableton Live just crashed. Future bass really lives completely off of checkerboarding, thanks to Mr. Flume. Let's try to open that again. If not, that doesn't work, I'll open up the project in Logic I was doing. So let's try that one more time. Okay. I forgot that you existed. See, I got that stuck in my head now. Okay. HW. All right, so this is a song called Kiss It, Make It Better. These vocals, at least right here, are actually recorded on a laptop mic. And you can see here the checkerboarding right here. So I'm going from very dry vocals to very wet vocal right here. That's a lot more dense, and then it goes back to the dry vocals.
Kiss it, make it better. Make me run through the stormy weather. Help me if I'm feeling better.
So I took the feeling better. I put it here. I put a reverb 100% wet on top of it, and then freezed and flattened it and cut off the tails, right? So that's that right there. Then, before the drop, right? Going from very dense to super dry. Okay? Then, once you get to the second chorus, it is really checkerboarding deluxe. And you can really see it here. So you've got, you know, this to this. And then you've got the chords. So check it out. And checkerboarding right there as well. All right, so I think you're starting to get the idea, so I'll show you one last example. And, oh my God, future bass lit. Okay, I'm splicing in this part of the video. Apparently when I changed over to Logic, it did not work. So here you go. I'm splicing this in. So this is an example in Logic. We'll just take a listen to this real quick. I think you'll hear pretty clearly right here and right here where the checkerboarding is, okay? there it is. So, were I not to have this little tom and kick in here, you would hear the very serious checkerboarding. Right? But turn that back on. Right, and you can see this complete hole in the sound here. Now, I had synths and stuff that did have reverb on it. So what I did was, again, I did a bounce in place, and you can see there's the audio right there. So that's how you get that done. You're using bounce in place in Logic, right? For instance, if I wanted to do it with the drums. Would be Control B, not Command B, but Control B. You hit OK, right? And then, boom, that turns it into audio. So that's how you do it over here in Logic, right? And in Ableton Live, we're doing duplicate, freeze, flatten. Okay, so checkerboarding, right? This is the video link if you want to watch the original video on it. I think he does a pretty good. The concept is cool. I don't know if I like his explanation of it that much. It can be used in pop. It can be used in EDM. It can be used in hip hop, right? The idea is that reverb tails can muddy up the mix. It's not like I'm against reverb tails, and I don't necessarily use checkerboarding in everything I do. It depends on what I'm going for. But reverb tails, can really, make your stereo image kind of bore the listener over time because there's no sense of separation between things. So obviously you use EQ and compression for separation and panning maybe, but another way to do this is with checkerboarding. So ostensibly in a way it is gated reverb, but it's also a dimensional transition, right? You're going from things that are very close to very far away and from things that are very far away to close, right? So checkerboarding is really an extension of our personalities in the sense that, we get bored with things, so we change what we're doing, and then we get bored with that and we change it back. This is the audio version of that. So not only is it a technical process, but it's really an emotional process where you're telling a listener, here I was in this land and now here I am now here, right? It's another way of storytelling. So bounce in place, we know that that's Control plus B in Logic. And we know that that's duplicate, freeze, flatten, and mute previous track in Ableton. And then I showed you this M4l BIP Plugin. This is the link to go grab it if you want to go grab it. This guy's got a lot of really cool M4l devices. I think it costs £3. So that's, I don't know, $4.50 or something, maybe $4. It's a really great plugin to have at your disposal in Ableton if you're serious about producing in Ableton. All right. These were the 3 projects I showed you. And then these were the songs that I showed you. Tove Strikes, Mistakes, Taylor Swift, I Forgot You Existed, and Rationale, Fuel to the Fire. Your 20-minute music project, right, if you're used to being in my classes, or Ryan Schwab's, is to create a 30-second or more project where you are using checkerboarding. You will bounce a MP3 or WAV and take a screenshot of your arrange window. Please also write a few sentences explaining your process. This will be due on Thursday. So obviously, we're not here synchronously. So if you have questions, follow up with me via email or follow up with me if you want to do a Zoom session or FaceTime or whatever. I welcome the social interaction. It's kind of different not being there in class, which I would obviously prefer. But again, any questions, email me, set up a Zoom session with me, FaceTime, whatever it is. Let me know if you need help with anything. I will talk to you all soon. Peace out. Or, you can leave a comment in the YouTube as well. Peace.